Hello, and thank you for joining us today to Getting to Know CapsimInbox, Introduction to Accounting and Managerial Accounting. My name's Akil Forbes, and I'm a business development manager. And again, want to thank everyone for taking time out to learn more about CapsimInbox as a platform and these specific iterations that address accounting. So I'm a business development manager. Joining us today is my colleague, Matthew Shell, who's a market development manager and really specifically responsible for the wide expansion of this platform, of the many iterations of this platform, and also joining us, esteemed pleasure to have Dr. David McCalman, who is a professor at the University of Central Arkansas and also our managerial accounting author. So at this time, I'm going to hand it over to Matt Shell, who's going to take us through a high-level overview of these specific iterations. Then we're going to dive deeper into the platform and then introduce David into the conversation. And later on, we'll have questions as well. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that, Akil. Again, everyone, thank you for your time today during today's presentation on Intro to Accounting as well as the Managerial Accounting inboxes. My name again is Matthew Shell. I'm Market Development Manager here at Capsim again, where I assist all of our academic as well as corporate authors with creating these custom microsimulation tools. And as Akil mentioned, at this point in time, we've created over 16 different versions at this point, and these are just two, of course, of those offerings at the moment that we have. What I'd like to do here is I'd like to also just provide a little bit more of an introduction for Dr. David McCalman. Again, he is Assistant Professor of Management at the University of Central Arkansas, as Akil mentioned. And I've had the pleasure of working with Dr. McCalman over the last 2 years now, and not just on authoring managerial accounting, but he also served as a subject matter expert reviewer for the Intro to Accounting version, as well as helping us with some exam item creations for our modular XM platform for exactly that topic, being accounting and finance. But what I'd like to do now, before I hand it back to Akil to take us through a granular look at the participant experience with CapsimInbox, followed by, of course, more information on these two versions, just provide you a brief 30,000-foot view of what these versions really seek to achieve and what skills that we're trying to assess. Now, what's important to note with CapsimInbox and these two simulations in particular is that both of them are going to be providing students with a very practical and experiential simulated email experience where we're going to get beyond just, the basic business knowledge related to these topical areas, but they're going to actually apply these concepts in a fictional business setting and be able to complete it in as little as an hour's time, basically. Now, in regards to the two versions we'll be focusing on today, the first one will be, of course, our brand new CapsimInbox Intro to Accounting. This is actually a version that we'll be releasing within the next 2 weeks for use in the spring semester. And with this, we wanted to try to assess the following skills: one's financial measurement capabilities, their knowledge application capabilities, as well as their critical and reflective thinking capabilities as well. And as you can imagine, based on the title, we really did try to design this for those intro level accounting courses, whether it be a prerequisite or a part of a accounting or your standard business style curriculum, and really aiming it at first and second year students. Now, on the flip side of that, the second one that we'll be focusing on today is going to be CapsimInbox Managerial Accounting. And in this version in particular, we do have a mix of both soft skills as well as hard skills, with some hard skill areas including assessing one's knowledge on cost concepts, financial statement analysis, and budgeting, while also still pulling some of those soft skill related topics that you see in Intro to Accounting, such as typical managerial decision making and business communication, whether it be internal with people inside an organization or with external clients, for example. And as you could probably imagine with managerial accounting, this is designed for a little bit more of your upper level undergrad students and graduate level students, as we really get kind of more granular when it comes to the different topics and computations that they're going to be doing in that particular version. So a quick intro to those two versions there. One more thing I'd like to do before I hand it back to Akil is just kind of, again, give you a 30,000-foot view on what is CapsimInbox essentially. And what CapsimInbox again is it's essentially a simulated email experience where we are putting students in the day in the life of a manager at a fictional company with a fictional role. And what they're seeking to achieve is that they want to respond to the variety of different situations, problems, or even crises that they may encounter related to the given topic that Inbox is focusing on. And again, this being, of course, the accounting versions. Now, what's great about this is that it's entirely web-based and very much self-directed. It's really as easy as just providing a hyperlink to your students so they can register and complete the simulation. And we'll even show you the administrative portal. That way you can see just how easy it is to be able to collect these results and export them if you'd like. Now, one way that I always like to conceptualize the CapsimInbox experience is think of it as a digital choose your own adventure, where basically, depending on the way that students respond to the emails, they're going to be able to see the consequences of their actions in real time, whether they be positive or negative. And essentially, this is an experience that can be done again in as little as an hour, and it really has three main components to it. The first component is an experience overview, where we are essentially welcoming the students into the experience and introducing them to the fictional scenario as well as their role to essentially set the scene. The other component of the onboarding, which Akil will go in more in depth on in just a second, will be a self-assessment component. That way we can get some self-reported data that we can then compare with their performance in the inbox simulation, which is what they encounter next. This being, of course, a 60-minute simulated email experience where they'll respond to roughly 20 to 30 emails, depending on the version. And then immediately upon completion of that micro simulation, we are able to provide an instantaneous and individualized feedback report that, of course, shows the student's performance by percentile on the different skills that we're assessing. And we actually visualize a couple of other key bits of information, such as skill gaps. And we, of course, have an optional individual development plan on the end of the experience. That way, if you'd like the students to make proactive goals to improve their skills, they can, of course, do that. And for the purpose of today's demonstration, we're going to be now walking through each part of that user experience. So I'll go ahead and hand it back to Akil, who will start us off right with the self-assessment. Akil?
Thank you, Matt. This is the first screen that the students will start to engage with. So I'm still looking at the welcome screen. If we could move a couple screens down, a couple slides over.
Mm-hmm. Should be the self-assessment screen now. Can you see that now, Akil?
Oh, okay. No.
Yep.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so and this self-assessment screen, this is the first screen that they'll see after they go through a high-level overview of introducing them to this platform and what's to come. They'll watch a short video introducing them to the platform, and then they'll start to engage with this self-assessment. And really, the self-assessment is going to focus on the skills that we're trying to measure in this experience. So for this example, this is from our general management, one of the first iterations that we built. And students will go on this page and see, okay, these are the skills that we're looking at: organizing, leading, problem solving, communicating, and initiating. And pull this cursor, this slider across this scale. This is a 0 to 100 scale, and really how comfortable do they feel with this particular skill in their capabilities. How comfortable am I with my organizing skill? Maybe I move that over to 20. Leading, maybe that's a 15, and problem solving, 75, and so on. So real quick self-assessment to get them started. And really from there on, their experience is going to follow this ribbon at the top of the screen of going through another onboarding. So in this experience, they're going to gain some more context on their particular role that they're playing in this fictitious company, and who reports to them, who do they report to, maybe an org chart of the company, some company values that they'll take some time to digest, and then hop into the inbox, which is the next slide. If you pass that along. So when we jump into the next slide, we see really it's replicating your typical email inbox, your Outlook, your Gmail, where it's going to start off inundated with emails coming from colleagues, maybe some outside clients as well. So you're going to go through these, read the contents of the email, and choose the best response for this scenario. And while you're going through these emails, you'll notice that there is a 60-minute timer that's counting down from 60 down to 0. And this is just an added stressor for the students. Again, trying to replicate a day in the life of a professional. So we're all under the constraints of time. So there's no penalty if they go over 60 minutes, and there's no real reward in this setting if they complete this exercise in, let's say, 15 minutes or anything like that. But just the added stressor of time. While they're going through these emails, they can reference the company drive files. If they need to reference, maybe some financial statements are housed there. Again, maybe an org chart is housed there as well, for them to digest that information to aid them in answering and responding to these emails as well. And you're also able to receive chats from colleagues. Some of these chat features will be, or chats from particular colleagues will be pertinent questions that are work related. Some won't be. Some will be sort of social. So it's really gearing the students up to, okay, how do I respond to these, and how do I prioritize my response? So they'll go through these emails, typically about 45 emails, and once they're finished, they'll exit the inbox itself and immediately see a feedback report that's going to drill down, which is the next slide. So the feedback report itself is going to start broad and then drill down to very specific. So it's going to give them an overall percentile of how they performed against the pool of participants that went through the same experience as well. So it's going to start wide and funnel down, and then we're going to see a development index for the students. They can take that in, a self-awareness score. How did their awareness compare to self-awareness of these particular skills compared to their responses in the inbox? And that's where that score comes from. But most importantly, they'll see the skill gap score. Here, they'll be able to see where they place themselves in the self-assessment, and then where the inbox placed them based on their responses. So they will, in some cases, see a positive, maybe a self-confidence builder in some ways. So organizing for this particular skill, this student put themselves at 10, the inbox puts them at 50. Oh, that's great. In other instances, they'll see a negative skill gap where they are maybe thinking too highly of their particular skills. So for instance, leading, in this example, they put themselves at 60, the inbox rates them at 20, and so on. So they can take in this information and analyze it, really becoming more self-aware as a professional or as a leader. Many assessments will leave students here of you're strong in these areas, you're weaker or need improvement in these other areas, have fun with that information. But here in the Inbox platform, we walk them through an individual development plan. What do you do with this information now that you have it? Which brings us to the next slide of reports. So IDP for short, individual development plan, will list the skills that we assessed in this exercise and list them out by development need. Students will click on the skills that, hey, I'd like to improve on. And the first thing they're going to see is our definition, or the author's definition, of this particular skill. And listed below that, they'll see a list of action items they can pick and choose from to implement, really building a SMART goal for themselves to build upon this skill. So setting a timeline to build on this particular skill and improve on the skill. And they can go back and do this, repeat this exercise for the rest of the other skills listed here. And thus really fleshing out their individual development plan. This is something that they can download as a PDF and walk away with as a structured goal to improve on these particular skills that you're trying to measure. Which brings us, we can take a look at the next slide, which really steps, reflect, set goal, and create plan is really the steps of this IDP after the fact. And then that is the student self-guided portion of the exercise. And then we'll switch over to the administrator dashboard. What will the administrators have access to? So the administrators will, again, be able to see a high-level view of how each student performed. their overall score, their self-awareness score, how they structured work, uh, how long do they spend in this particular exercise, and when they completed their IDP. And professors can also actually view the student's IDP. They can also take a deeper dive into these skill scores, and all of this information is exportable to a CSV or an Excel a document to be used for accreditation purposes or other data purposes. So pretty simple to digest, simple to get used to as a dashboard for the administrator of this exercise of either iteration. So now we've taken the high-level view, kind of taking a closer look at the platform. We can specifically jump into the iterations that we're focusing on today. And this is where I'm going to hand it back to Matt here and jump into the introduction to accounting, what that covers.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Keel. And just a few key points to note. What's important to understand is that the user interface that Akil just walked us through is going to be indicative of every single inbox that we've created thus far. Of course, the main things that change are going to be the skills being assessed, as well as the fictional scenario, and of course, the email stimuli created in that given version. And then also too, at this point, if any of you have any questions that you'd like to have answered, please feel free to submit them into the chat. We're going to take some time at the end of today's presentation to go ahead and respond to those. Any questions you'd like, of course. But the first thing that we can kind of dive a bit further on is going to be the CapsimInbox Intro to Accounting version. Again, this is geared towards first and second levels students. And the key skills that we're looking to assess here are going to be financial measurement. So the actual computation of economic or financial data in terms of whether it be money, hours, or units. We're going to be looking at knowledge applications. So the technical accounting knowledge related to classifying and recording different transactions, or how accounting entries will affect a company's financial statements. Of course, we have critical thinking in there as well. Are they able to interpret the story beyond the numbers? Can they spot any trends or irregularities, for instance? And can they find solutions, of course? And then we have reflective thinking, because this is, of course, a narrative story that they're going through. We want to see, can they be active in acquiring knowledge throughout the experience, building upon that knowledge, and then as a result, form conclusions based on where that knowledge is leading them. So again, a mixture of both the hard and the soft skills within this particular one. And what's really fun about this is that we really tried to make it more of an introductory kind of position in the fictional company, where the student is going to be taking the role of a staff accountant at Blue Mountain Soda Factory, a fictional beverage company that specializes in carbonated beverages. And what's fun about this is that it really has an entrepreneurial type of vibe to it. The company's growth is quickly outpacing their financial resources. But what exactly will the students be doing? Well, of course, they're going to be addressing a variety of different financial accounting questions and try to provide recommendations primarily internally, but some externally, with everything related to your standard, financial statements like income statements and balance sheets, but also other areas such as financial ratios. And really what we're trying to measure here more than anything is that basic level accounting knowledge and terminology, while making sure that they can interpret those common financial statements. And more than anything, really try to understand the cross-functional importance of accounting across any type of business, really. And in terms of the format with this version in particular, we have this kind of broken up into 3 smaller sections where think of them as essentially checkpoints, if you will, where there are about 10 emails apiece, making up, of course, 30 in total. And what's great about this is that it allows you to either have the students go through the entire experience all at once, go through all sections, say, over the course of an evening, which can be completed again in its entirety, roughly about an hour. Or say you want to spread this out, on a more weekly basis, for instance. Maybe in week 4 or 5, you want them to go through the first section, 2 weeks later, the second section, and then 3 weeks later, the third section, for instance. You definitely have the ability to do that. And you can monitor the progress of any student at any given point in time. And again, this is one that we're just about to release within the next 2 weeks here. So very excited to have this out there. We got a lot of requests about this version. And at the end of today's presentation, we're going to give you the opportunity to, of course, have access to full demo accounts, student demo accounts. That way you can see the entire experience from their perspective. Now, the second version that I'd like to detail, and this is where I'd be happy to bring Dr. McCalman into the conversation, would be, of course, our managerial accounting version. And in this particular one, again, the skills that we're evaluating are going to be managerial decision-making, cost concepts, financial statement analysis, budgeting, and business communication. And as you can expect, this is going to be, of course, a pretty much a step up from the Intro to Accounting version. So in this one, rather than being a staff accountant, now that the student is a senior accountant at a consulting firm that really specializes in asset valuation and acquisitions. And as far as what they're going to have to really understand and assess is, items related to the firm's financial health, costs, and trying to understand the profitability of their different product lines throughout the experience. Now, with this knowledge, they're going to have to pretty much capture how this business's operations are working, provide some valuable financial insights to their internal stakeholders, while also providing recommendations, of course, to external stakeholders as well. But with that, I'd like to go ahead and bring Dr. McCalman into the conversation. David, is there anything that in particular you would like to add to the scenario before we go through a couple short questions?
Well, first off, I was just very pleased when I looked at inboxes before I even got involved in authoring myself. The platform is clean. It is just as user-friendly as any simulation out there. I served for 6 years on the Curriculum Assessment Committee at the College of Business here, and I have looked at any number of simulations from a lot of places, and a number of things struck me about the inbox platform, just generically speaking. And one of them is that, from the student's perspective, it is, as you said, Matt, it's something that they can just get a link to and dive right in. It's basically self-explanatory. This is your inbox. This is what you're facing in a real world job as a participant. And then also, I got to say, from the faculty's perspective, it's also just smooth as silk. So I like that. When I set it up and piloted it, there were just no glitches whatsoever. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to mention one other thing, and that is, this is a win-win-win situation. That is from the administrative side, and I mean from the college and university administrative side, simply because this dovetails very nicely into accreditation for accreditation purposes. I have in front of me the 2020 Guiding Principles and Standards for AACSB that just came out 5 months ago. And some of our listeners here might be familiar with the 3 buzzwords: engagement, innovation, and impact. And by the way these things are defined, these are things that CSB is looking for. This is provided in the inbox experience. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, simulations as a whole are key to lasting, deep, and critical learning. And so, I'm wearing more than one hat here. I've dealt with this, from the professor standpoint, but as well from the standpoint of the administration, looking at this and saying, look, for ease of use, it cannot be beaten, but it generates real useful knowledge right away. I'm glad that you showed the administrator's dashboard. So that's how easy this data is collected for whomever is using it. So I like that a lot, and I thought this is begging for an accounting application.
Absolutely.
And so we have the two. Right, we have the two. We have the Introduction to Accounting, and then this is Managerial Accounting. It's more for junior, senior level, and perhaps even MBA level as well. A little more challenging, but it still uses just the same basic format.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that, David. If you don't mind me asking, when you were creating CapsimInbox Managerial Accounting, what did you really set out to create with that experience once you kind of had an idea of what Inbox could do, or what was there a particular need that you were trying to address with that particular version?
I wanted real feel. I wanted the student, the students in the cockpit making these decisions, and there is that time element. And as Akil pointed out, you'll get some messages that aren't even germane here and there, a friend asking you over this weekend or something like that. But but then you have colleagues, you have a manager, you also have these very important clients that you're working indirectly for, and all of these are competing for your attention. And so you have to make decisions, and again, it engages the student. So I like the fact that it takes them outside of their normal classroom or even distance classroom environment and into something like deep application, and make it challenging for them. And of course, they're spending about as much as they'll spend this afternoon at Starbucks. So the economics of it was promising as well.
100%. Well, thank you for that, David. And, actually in a second, we're going to transfer back to Akil, where he's going to talk about some of the common use cases that we've seen. But I'd just be curious, David, from your experience, how would you see this type of tool being used in instruction in terms of the actual application? Would this be like a sort of a beginning and the end of course thing? Would this be something you'd administer like towards the end as an assessment? What would you suggest?
I like the idea of the pre-test, post-test method. But it could be used at any time in the course of a semester. It could be used at the end only, but it's designed to, assess a broad array of skill sets, whether it's, cost or financial statement analysis, that sort of thing. And another nice thing about it, which just makes it easy from the professor's point of view, is as far as grading goes, the optionality is unlimited, because you can assign points simply for having stuck through the 60 minutes or whatever, but also you could weight different areas of it. And so I do like the pre-test, post-test. Something else I've done, another hat that I've worn, is pre-MBA design. And so we, like every other institution that has an MBA program, we'll have people looking for admittance into our program that may be highly skilled, but they don't necessarily have a business undergrad. This could be used for assessing their ability to ease right into an MBA program, or perhaps have some kind of additional pre-MBA course which we offer. So I guess my own personal favorites would be pre and post test, and then maybe late or end of semester. Okay,
excellent. Well, thank you very much for that addition there, David. Of course, if you have any questions for David on his experience with creating this version, feel free to, again, enter them into the chat. We'll visit those at the end of the presentation here. With that from David, it's kind of a nice transition. Akil, I'd be happy to throw it back to you, where you can kind of define exactly what those use cases that David was referring to look like.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and thank you again, David, for sharing that. But yeah, many different use are the one that David mentioned as a pre and post test, popular. This can be used as a quick homework assignment, because it's really 60 minutes at length from start to finish for students, self-contained. They get the results. And so it could be a simple homework assignment, or it can be used as a live case study. Or in place of a case study. And it can be also used as an assessment. And he also mentioned the two pre and post. You can do pre and post scenarios. So pre and post scenario at the start of the semester and at the end of the semester. Or he alluded to a pre-program. As you enter into the program, before you enter into a program, or in many cases, an MBA program uses, or one case actually, the MBA program uses it in their welcoming of the students. Hey, where do you stand in these soft skills? Let's become more self-aware of your professional skills that we're going to be working on in this MBA program. They take that first thing in the orientation, and then as they're leaving the program 2 years later, the institution can grasp that longitudinal data for assessments, and students can see their self-growth over the term of this program. So, I mean, those are really the use cases that are most popular now. exercise case studies, pre and post, and as an assessment.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for that description, Akil. And one thing that I'd like to add as well is that, of course, these objectives and use cases are going to be relevant for, again, all of the different inboxes that we have available. They're all going to have the same kind of, computational output when it comes to the feedback report and everything, and makes it very simple for you to just kind of pull the results directly out of the sim. And another thing when we talk about platform level is, one of the things to consider is that we've only been working with the Inbox platform for roughly about 3 years now, just about to hit 4, honestly. And in that time, we've made, obviously a lot of expansion with the different versions available, but we've also been recognized by some institutions out there as well at the platform level. And what I'm happy to share with is actually this year alone, we were able to pick up 2 of the EdTech Cool Tool Awards. One for the Trendsetter winner for 2020 as a product or service setting a trend for the workforce. And then, of course, the Cool Tool Award for the Professional Skills Solution as well. So we're very happy to, be recognized for these with the CapsimInbox platform, and we look forward to the future with it as well. Now, on a final note, of course, we'd like to thank you all for your time before we get to questions, of course. There's a couple of different ways if you'd like to learn more that you can approach us about this. Of course, my email is up there as well as Akil's. Of course, special thanks to Dr. David McCalman for joining us today. But if you are interested in learning more, please feel free to connect directly with Akil. We'd be happy to give you a one-on-one personal walkthrough of the platform as well as demo access. But of course, we'll be providing the recording of today's webinar as well as the links to create demo accounts right here on this final slide. And if you'd like to pilot it with some of your students as well, we'd be more than happy to do so. So with that, I'll go ahead and check the chat box here. I see we've got 1 or 2 questions so far. If anybody has any other questions, feel free to submit them at this time. I'll give everybody just a couple seconds and then we'll go ahead and get started with those. Okay. So I see we've got one here question related to pricing, and then David, I am seeing one that we can send your way in regards to the synergy between Intro to Accounting as well as Managerial Accounting. So first off, I'd be happy to talk about the pricing for these 2 versions. Of course, we did, of course, try to make it a little bit more cost-effective since this is more abridged experience. Both of the experiences that we went through today are available for only $9.99 per student for a single use. And what we do is if you'd like to apply it in the pre and post test format, as David and Akil were mentioning, where maybe you want to do it at the beginning and the end of the semester and be able to really kind of see the empirical longitudinal data compared between those 2 applications, we provide that for simply $5 more. You can get that for $14.99 per student, which will allot them 2 uses per student. And you can spread those out, whether they be just a couple days in between or months or even the better part of a year, honestly. And then also here, David, we have a question around, the synergy between the Intro to Accounting version and if somebody were to say go into Managerial Accounting next. I think this is particularly, relevant for you as you served as a subject matter expert for Intro to Accounting. Would you mind sharing a few of your thoughts on, how those might play together?
Well, right away, again, the students find it easy to get into the first, but then additionally, once you proceed on to Managerial Accounting, and I should add that if a student or participant has not done either of them, they can easily, slide into the other. So it's not a prerequisite to take the Intro to Accounting, but it's just a seamless fit between the 2 of them. And having done it once, participants are basically entering the same world, and so they're used to it. And the fact that there are essentially these character story arcs going on that gives it that realistic feel.
Absolutely. And actually, David, while we do have you on call, I think that, for the benefit of everybody that decided to attend today's presentation, we can give them a little bit of insight in the future of how we'll be working together. As David is actually going to be starting work on a CapsimInbox financial management version. And to your point, David, about the shared universe, that's exactly what we're seeking to achieve here. So the exact same scenario, the consulting company we talked about for Managerial Accounting, the student will re-enter this financial management version is essentially like a complementary experience with the same kind of shared universe, same characters. That way they can easily jump from that managerial accounting version to financial management, understanding the scenario, albeit from a different point of view and with a different topical focus, basically. So excited to share that all with you today as well.
That's exactly right. They'll have the same clientele, basically, maybe with new problems, new challenges that their consultancy clients are facing. But it's the same individuals, and they have the same businesses going on, and so it's the same world that the participant is navigating through.
Excellent, fantastic. Well, and with that, we're happy to close out today's webinar. Akil or David, anything either of you would like to add before we wrap up for today?
No, just thankful. Thank you, David. Thank you, Matt, and thank everybody else for joining us today. I appreciate it. That's the last thing I have. Thank you.
Yes, I appreciate this opportunity. I just wanted to emphasize again, for those out there that have never even dealt with an inbox, never opened one before from Capsim, I can safely say, having done something like this myself, that this afternoon, not that you will, but you could actually impart this to a class full of students. It is that simple a thing to do. I was at a previous institution of higher learning, and a colleague of mine received a federal grant to assess different simulations, the names of many of which you might have heard before, you probably have heard of before. And so I was part of that, and so I observed the use of lots and lots of different simulations from lots of companies. And this one, as far as I'm concerned, takes the cake, and that's why I got involved in it. It's just the simplest and yet most robust tool that's out there. So I just wanted to give a plug for its ease of use.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again, David. Thank you again, Akil, and thank you again, everybody, for your time today. As mentioned, we'll go ahead and provide the recording of today's meeting as well as the presentation deck. That way, if you'd like to see it as well, we'll have that to you shortly here. But if you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to reach out to Akil or myself at any time. And we hope you all have a great day. Bye-bye.